Welcome to Behind the Helm. We are so happy you're here with us. The show features myself and Petty Officer Dowden. We work together in Indiana as Navy recruiters. We created the show with the intention to help bring together the past, present, and future personnel of the military to help build a better understanding of what it's like to actually be a part of it. So you'll see anything from like interviews to video reactions or just personal stories of our own to help guide those who have interest in learning more about what the military has to offer and what it takes to make the ultimate sacrifice to serve your country. This podcast can be found on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, and live on Facebook every Thursday at 4 p.m. And that's facebook.com/behindthehelm. So don't forget to like, share, and follow the show so you never miss out on an episode. And thank you to everyone here who supports us. Enjoy.
How long is this?
All right, welcome to episode 26, I believe, of Behind the Helm. 20 years.
20 years.
20 years.
You're in for a treat today. This was going to be a little bit more sombering, but it was something that we really wanted to do. We'd already talked about it, and then, of course, talking with Don Nichols last week, him getting out right before that happened, serving all that time. And then, 20-year anniversary this Saturday.
Yeah, so, 9/11 is something that, it doesn't matter how old you are, you know about it, whether you lived it or you heard stories. It's something that, we'll never forget. And, we say that. Never forget, and we know exactly what that means. And I think after 20 years, even watching that video, I mean, it's still something that, I was 6 years old when it happened. 6 years old. and I could still remember
Yeah.
those visuals, like I could still remember what I was doing, where I was, and everything.
I think too, like we're getting into a time frame now, obviously, where people who are joining the armed forces now, unless they're joining a little older, like I'm talking high school seniors, were born at a point either after or that they actually wouldn't remember. So we definitely wanted to obviously talk about it, remember it, but also some of the changes that occurred in the United States, in the world, in the military, and that this helped. So, before we get into that, I know we've kind of made a joke about paying homage to the Eagle. We're not paying homage today, but we said that this would grow, and I brought something really special. So some of you know I served on the USS Cole, and we went to, which we'll talk about a little later, but I went to New York City. We met a bunch of different police officers, and a lot of them carry, and I know it's going to be really hard to see, but a lot of them carry, we would call them challenge coins, but this is a piece of the World Trade Center. It's stamped WTC, and a New York police officer gave that to me while we were there. And then I was one of 3 sailors that got to go to the Mounted Division stables. I actually got to ride one of their horses, so that was really cool. And they gave me a patch, so to grow the table. And especially in remembrance of 9/11, we're gonna add that today. So
That's
I think
awesome.
that's a good one to
Yeah,
add.
that's awesome. So, honestly, everyone, I think this question comes up, every year, and I think even throughout the year since it happened, where were you? What were you doing when 9/11 happened?
And just on one other note, because we'll get into the history of it, me being on the USS Cole, just this past October was the 20-year anniversary of the USS Cole bombing as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I was in high school. I was either a freshman or sophomore. So I don't really remember the Cole bombing because that was kind of that first act. I do remember 9/11. I guess I was the year prior. So I do remember 9/11. I was in high school, and in Indiana, we used to take the I-STEP, or just like, kind of graduating advancement exam type thing. And we were in the middle of the test. They came in, they told everybody to put their pencils down, and then they told us that a plane had crashed into one of the World Trade Center towers, that they were going to bring in a TV into, so we were in the study hall, into the cafeteria, and we could come out after we were done, and that if anybody had any concerns or family there, to come out and go make a call. So it was kind of a shock because we're in the middle of this test, and I think probably the most shocking thing was then they said, okay, continue testing.
Yeah, Indiana, standardized testing.
Standardized testing. But I will remember that. It was, because the teacher, you could see teachers out in the cafeteria watching it like an upset, and it was our, I believe it was our principal that came in, and he's like a big guy, deep voice, but you could hear it like in his voice, like that kind of quiver, because it meant a little bit more, obviously, to them. We're sophomores in high school, like it mattered, but we didn't maybe understand the gravity of the situation at the time.
Yeah.
So with you being 6, I was
being
6
able
old to remember it, probably interrupted Blue's Clues or something, but
yeah, no.
what?
I forget exactly what we were doing, but I remember we had like a TV, like kind of like mounted up in the classroom. And
you were in like kindergarten at the time?
Yeah, first grade.
Oh yeah.
So they had a TV. Grade, yeah. They had a TV mounted up, and I remember they put the TV on. Wow. Like all the teachers were like, I remember teachers like coming in and out, and I remember they put the TV on and they had the news on, and they were like visually upset about what was happening. Obviously I don't understand
at all,
but I remember them just dismissing us. It was not. It was.
You're in Massachusetts.
Yes.
So this is not. I mean, it's still pretty far away, but close enough. There was concern, right?
Another thing is that all those planes, they flew out of Logan Airport in Boston. Right. So for us, they were here when, like,
What
the
else is
terrorists
here?
were there.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of panic.
Mhm.
And yeah, we're just 4 hours from New York. And we got dismissed. I went to my great grandmother's house, and I remember my dad came to pick me up, and some other people showed up, and they were all just all around the TV and just watching. And I don't remember how long it was until I went back to school,
Oh yeah.
because I think it was a while. I mean, I don't know if you would remember, but
We were back obviously like pretty much the next day unless there was concern, but I mean being like you're saying, like being
Yeah.
there, and I didn't even really think about that. Like they came out of Logan, so that there'd be a concern what's still here. What,
Yep.
because there was a lot
we didn't.
of
There was a
unknown.
lot of things coming in saying like
Mm-hmm.
more could happen.
Yeah, a lot of unknown. So
I always, think about, like, if that's something at 6 years old that I remember
Yeah.
clearly. I don't know how many memories we have at that age, but I remember today
right,
them putting the TV on, me walking across the street to see my great grandmother,
right.
walking up her apartment, sitting down, watching them watch the TV, and remember people being scared.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah.
yeah.
And of course, like being in the middle of Indiana, we had those ones that weren't like, kids will be kids, weren't high school. So like people who actually genuinely were upset because maybe they understood the gravity of the situation a little more, like, kids being kids and like making fun of them. And it wasn't something to be made fun of. So I think too, again, just to say, obviously, if you're here watching right now, thank you so much for being here. This isn't quite normally what we do, but there's going to be some education involved into it. But make sure you hit that like button, share this feed, because I think everybody needs to remember that we will never forget. And if you remember where you were, if you're old enough to remember, go ahead and post it. Go ahead and post it in the comments down below. And thank you for being here and sharing in this remembrance for us, and remember it on Saturday.
So a lot of things kind of changed after 9/11.
Yeah.
And we're going to kind of go into some of those things that had changed. Terrorism was not really a thing. I mean, it was.
Not
It,
like
it was. There was rumblings of what terrorism was, because of Desert Storm and things that had been going on in Africa, and the embassy, the USS Cole.
right.
Um,
That we had not seen like that kind of, that global war on terror. Like that's where this originated from. We haven't really seen that. And the USS Cole, that changed. That was the first thing that changed a ton in how we do things in the Navy. And for those of you not familiar, the USS Cole was in Yemen, and it got hit by a suicide bomber. It was just a ship that was coming in, and it blew a 40 by 20 foot hole in the side of the ship. 17 sailors lost their lives. I think it was like 39 injured. And they saved the ship. I mean, obviously I was stationed on it. Wasn't 20 years ago. And it's really funny because we were talking about this beforehand, and we'll get into it a little bit more. But I got to do a Fleet Week in New York. I don't remember what year, but the Cole, the year that it got bombed, actually did a Fleet Week in New York. And it was in May, and there's a picture of the Cole like coming into New York. The Twin Towers are there. And then later that year, the Cole got bombed. And then, the next year, then 9/11 happened.
Yeah.
We had not been back to New York since when we came in. I mean, we're talking this was, I think it was 15. I don't remember. I ought to look that up. But I know we came in just because of that connection. It was insane. Like, it was just insane. People were lined up along the bay and just everything. And, we're going to talk about something I got to do while I was there here in just a little bit.
So obviously the War on Terror began almost immediately after. I think in October they started bombing Baghdad. And, since then the War on Terror continues. And it's something that, we're never going to forget about. Terrorism is going to be a thing
No.
that will always be present because something like that happened.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and the whole part of never forget is that reason. Like, if something like that can happen, it could happen again. You know, but you'll see there's things that were put in place for preventative measures of that happening. So
I think there's a lot of things, and we're going to get into this, and I think people are going to be, especially some of maybe our younger listeners, like any of my future sailors that are out there watching this, there's things that change that are normal to people now that it wasn't that way. And we're not saying like this stuff like I used to walk uphill both ways to school in the snow. Like, no, I just mean like normal everyday life. Like it changed a lot.
yeah. So one thing, airport security had gotten a lot stricter.
Mm-hmm.
The TSA was actually created November 2001. So there was no TSA before 9/11. Yeah, and the tight security measures haven't let up since. It's still exactly the same. Maybe I don't know. I imagine it'd still be the same because it's pretty tight. It's like, you know what I mean? They don't mess around with TSA.
I didn't fly obviously like right afterwards or anything, but I know it was really, really strict. I mean, it's still, I mean, they are very strict in all the things that's in place, but I know then, like, I mean, I just remembered too, this is, you may not believe this is, I swear, they grounded all aircraft.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
I got home in Indiana here. I lived out in Young America, Indiana, like in the country, and I heard planes, and I'm like, they grounded everything. Well, where the president was at the time, because I think he was in Texas, don't quote me, but he flew, and it was Air Force One. Like I saw Air Force One fly over my house, like, you know.
Yeah, he was literally reading a
book. Yeah,
a book to like
kids.
A bunch of kids in a school.
Yeah, so that was just another, thing that I'll always remember. Like, that I lived close to Grissom Air Force Base, and you always heard planes or even just airliner. There's nothing.
The Department of Homeland Security was created. It's an office put together a number of appointed officials that oversee national strategy and national security. It was created to protect the country against another wide-scale terrorist attack through the use of information gathering and department-led investigations.
Yeah, that's another one that most people are they're used to hearing that. Homeland Security. That was created because of this incident.
And I didn't know that until I actually had read this. I did not know that was something that was created. Security increase outside of airports. That's big. I mean, like
even outside. Yeah, you can't even leave your car running. I mean, they always kind of,
Yeah.
But I mean, they've gotten very strict on that. Like,
Let's see what else. Added some new terms to our vocabulary.
Yeah.
One thing we keep saying, never forget. That's a new term. Like when you say that term, it only means one thing.
Yeah. Yes.
When you say never forget, it is directly attached to 9/11. Homeland Security, which you just talked about, the axis of evil.
War on terror.
Yeah. Or terror alert. All those things directly stemmed from 9/11. And then kind of the way that we got our news. So prior to,
big too, yeah.
Prior to, there wasn't a lot of like foreign news cycles about things that were happening in foreign countries, but after the attacks, more and more stations devoted more time to news,
especially like
from around the world.
And it's talking a lot on like local, like, there was always like CNN and stuff like that, but I don't think that you would, like here in Indiana, you wouldn't turn on like local ABC or Fox News and like hear about something going on overseas for the most part, unless it was like something massive. And it really did kind of change after that, because people then, it was like, well, maybe we're living too much in our own little comfortable bubble. This can't happen. People can't do this to us. So it was big.
And then there was obviously a big increase in patriotism. It says, much has been written about the seeming increase in patriotism following the attacks, many Americans expressed how they felt there was an increase in pride in their country following a shared horrific experience.
Mm-hmm.
You know, yeah, it's because when you like go to, let's say you had a family member pass away,
Yeah.
and your whole family gets together, and you're like, man, I wish we would just get together.
Right.
And it didn't have to be about that. That's
Right.
That's sort of what kind of happened.
Kind of
Like
brought us
we
together
all
as a
we
nation.
all are willing to be together, like stand together.
Mm-hmm.
And it took that very, very large event for it to show that we all really care about each other. And I think if we remember that,
Mm-hmm.
what we showed after in the wake of 9/11, then this country will always prevail no matter what.
And again, if you're out there, if you've joined in, you're watching now or listening now, make sure you comment below. If you remember where you were, or you have a story about 9/11 that you wouldn't mind sharing, do so. But I think with the patriotism thing for me, and we were talking about this this morning, actually, I remember seeing a thing that I remember American flags, were selling out. There, after this happened, you go down any street, there was, everybody had a flag. And I don't necessarily agree that it was increased patriotism, because I think inherently all Americans are patriots. I really do. And we love the country that we live in. You might have your own political thoughts or whatever, and we never get into that on this really, or, there's no reason to, but I think it was one of those things that it really was eye-opening for a lot of people. And then that patriotism really did come out to show I support you, you support me, I support him. So it is one of those things, kind of like you said, you go to a family funeral, why don't we get together like this? Sometimes it's why aren't we like this all the time?
Mm-hmm.
And that can be tough, especially, us obviously being in the military, being recruiters.
Yeah.
Not seeing that or getting some of the negative comments or things that we do. But knowing, and I think Don said it really good last week. If you haven't watched that episode, please go back and watch Don's story. It's amazing. But again, thank you for being here this week. And in remembrance of 9/11, 20 years this Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
Don had said, if you're joining the military just for college or this or that, it's not the right reason. Yeah, you can get those things and it can be a reason, but you need to join knowing, what you're protecting: your family, your home, your flag, your nation. And a lot of times if somebody says that, I'm like, I don't want to say that and kind of scare people off, or I used to be that way, right? I just want to pitch the benefits. I instill in all my future sailors, hey, you joined for whatever reason you did. Get out of your situation or whatever. Go to school. I can't afford it, this, that. But I can guarantee that when they leave, they're going to be very proud of what they're doing and why.
Oh, yeah, for sure. So another thing that happened, the increased patriotism obviously led to an increase in enlistment in the military. 20 years ago on September 11th, the United States came under attack. In response, 181,510 Americans enlisted in the ranks of active duty service, and 72,908 joined the enlisted reserves in the year following 9/11, so in 1 year.
Mm-hmm.
Many of these brave service members claim that it was 9/11 that inspired them. So I have a quick video of some Americans that, and this is mostly Army, and it's actually people that are more in my age group on why they joined. Obviously they couldn't join at the time, but they still remembered what happened.
Yeah.
And you'll see there's a lot of things I never forgot. So when I was of age,
right,
I wanted to serve my country.
Well, and we had talked too, there was a lot of it. I think one of the sites we were reading on as we were researching for this episode, where they said, it was the patriotism, it was being angry. There were a lot of people who were very angry, obviously.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So they wanted to join because they, wanted to go do God's work, let's say. They wanted to help the nation get back to that. But a lot of it is, like you said, the patriotism and never forgetting. So let's watch this one.
September 11, 2001. I was a freshman in college at Eastern Kentucky University.
I was actually in 6th grade. I was just getting out of school.
Well, I was in 5th grade.
My unit was deployed, part of the unit deployment program to Fuji, Japan.
September 11th, I was in high school.
I was sitting in the dorm writing a last-minute paper that was due, I think, at 10:30.
We were bedding down about 2200 at night.
My squad and I, we were sitting out in the wood line and listening to AFN on the radios. We heard the news reports.
It's 9 o'clock when we heard, of course, doing my last-minute paper and had CNN on. And sure enough, watched it in real time, but
Everything we were doing stopped.
One of our other Marines came upstairs and let us know that a plane had hit the World Trade Center.
My town has an Air Force base in it. I remember just hearing a bunch of helicopters and jets just flying by.
They came in and told us about the attacks and what was going on. And then they brought in televisions to every classroom.
I didn't really know what was going on. I just remember looking out the window and just hearing them roar over my school.
It was just unthinkable to most of us. It was kind of hard to believe that it was happening.
My grandparents told me about it. Didn't really think of it at the time. I was kind of young. Didn't really know what was going on.
I was very young, but I would say definitely within the month, if not a couple months later, after we'd seen it all on TV.
I think as the days went by, weeks went by, I started to realize more and more what was happening.
That's when it really hit. I was young, but still it had an impact.
And at that point, our training was going to be put to use. That everybody's attitude on that day switched to we are going to war.
Shortly after that, I decided that I was going to join the military.
You definitely saw a lot of people joining up specifically for that reason.
I actually wasn't even thinking about the military at all.
After that, I pretty much grew up knowing I was going to end up in the military.
I thought, you know what, I'm not really doing much to help people back home, so let me join, better my life, and try to help others.
I wanted to do something good for the country and for the families who lost loved ones.
Now they're enlisting because they still remember.
a little bit more of a sense of purpose. These guys, they know why they're getting in the military.
Soldiers right now joined knowing that there was a more likely chance for them to be deployed overseas. Most of them joined with the idea in their head that they were going to deploy to either Iraq or Afghanistan.
It opened up my eyes to all the threats that are out there.
Somebody came to our front door, they attacked us. I don't like it. I don't like that it happened. I still don't like it, and I want to prevent it from happening again.
I think it definitely was the day that kind of defined this generation.
We should always remember and use that as a focal point to give us purpose.
I know back home a lot of people ask, so we're done, right? But unfortunately, this goes much further to stop an insurgency.
I believe that we are here doing something really constructive, and in the long run, it's going to help out. It's going to, stop such things as September 11th in our homeland.
Yeah. So as you can see, there's people there that were like currently serving, that seen it all happen in real time, and it seemed like their whole focus shifted.
Mm-hmm.
There was people in college,
people younger in high school that like, hey, shortly after that,
Mm-hmm.
that's something that I remember that I'm going to join, and yeah,
and that's that spark for some people who felt like their nation was kind of calling them. And, to all those people who, took that call and, sacrificed their lives to protect us. I mean, we're indebted to them.
Yeah, and there's a lot even with that. And I mean, that opening video, because we know the Twin Towers, but like the Pentagon and then the other flight that went down in Pennsylvania, and so all those families that are out there, again, like I said, this is 20 years later, but it doesn't make it any less painful for those who dealt with it. So again, like I said, make sure that you take the time to remember it. It's also, this isn't just about military. It's about our country. A lot of civilians lost their lives. Not only that, but a lot of volunteers. There were volunteer crews that came from states everywhere to help. There were a lot of police officers
from Boston. A lot
of firefighters that had lost their lives trying to save others. So remembering those, because this wasn't like a military action at this point, so it wasn't like that like we were standing somewhere at the time. This was your everyday, firefighters and the people who were on those flights that were just getting on flights to go do whatever they needed to do. So it was big, and we definitely wanted to take the time to do this. So
yeah, you can talk about the Cole and your trip to your Fleet Week to New York.
So when I got orders to USS Cole, I'd actually looked at it as a because of a scheduling thing. I had not really put it together until I got there, and then understanding that history was really cool. Being part of that history was really cool, and there were times that we had to do a lot of stuff because we were the Cole that as just a lower sailor was annoying, but then there were times that we got to do a lot of really cool stuff because we're the Cole. So we got to go to a Fleet Week in New York. Like I said before, the Cole was there in 2000 in May, got bombed in October. Then the following year, World Trade Center happened, 9/11 happened, and then I got to go there for a Fleet Week. When we went, it was the week that the 9/11 memorial opened. So, Fleet Weeks are it's kind of like they're celebrating the Navy, and you're kind of, I don't want to say like partying, but like enjoying the city and the food and people are helping you. We got an opportunity to go to the 9/11 memorial, and it was, we were all, they let us cut there was a line like around the block, and they let us cut the line, walking in. I don't know if you want to show the video or not, but walking in, you come up, they have those fountains, and these fountains, they were designed where the two fountains are. They're actually setting where the two towers were, and they are designed to where no matter where you stand, you cannot see the bottom. They're bottomless, which obviously they are, but it's how it looks. And then around them is etched just all the names of everybody who perished that day. And then, so we're looking at that, and we go up, and they see us, and they let us cut this line, which we kind of felt bad about. But, all right, cool. Kind of perks of Fleet Week. We go inside, and the instant we went in to the building, it changed everything that I was right then. You know what I mean? Like why we were there, and it wasn't about fun anymore.
Yeah.
It changed kind of an outlook on what I was doing in the military, because it was extremely sombering. You have to remember too, it had just opened. So there were family members and stuff that had not really been there yet. So there were, tissue boxes like everywhere in like private areas, and you'd be walking through an area and there'd just be somebody sitting there just sobbing. It is very dark. There are things that I don't want to say interactive, but like it lights up and shows you where things are, where people are from. There are areas that you're in that it's all the phone conversations.
Yeah,
conversations with survivors, conversations from the planes. And you're hearing it. It's playing very lowly, but you're hearing it, and it's being projected onto things. It's very dim in there. There's artifacts from then. There's a set of stairs that survived. There's a fire engine that got crushed. There's a flag. There's so much to even get into. I can't remember it all, but it's like girders, beams, the photos, the testimonials. It was hard to walk through there. Was I directly affected? No, but it doesn't change how I felt about it. it doesn't change that, we're there for Fleet Week, like having fun and enjoying New York. And we walk in, and when we went in, like, oh yeah, we want to see this, and like, but we're still like kind of like smiling, and you just walk in, and it'll just hit you, especially that there were family members there that hadn't been there yet, and you'd round a corner, and there'd just be somebody sitting there, just sobbing, and you wanted to console them, and there were a lot of people, because for Fleet Week, we're in dress uniform, we're in our dress whites. There were a lot of people who walked up to us in there, tears in their eyes, like, talking to us. And I'm like, this is years ago. And I, as much as I appreciate when somebody thanks me for my service, I always tell them, thank you for your support. They're thanking me, because of this incident with their family. And I wasn't really part of that yet, but it was, you
didn't realize what you were about to take part in going into that.
No.
Because, the actual, memorial, like the endless fountain, is just kind of beautiful, and you can kind of take time to look at it, but I guess seeing the actual like destruction of things and hearing the phone calls and the distress and the actual pieces of things that were left behind, you get more of a intimate look on it.
The way they did it too, and I mean, we have the video still kind of like, because we're watching it, and I'm remembering it, like the way that they put a lot of thought into this. You know what I mean? It's great. Well, you know what I mean? Yeah. It's a great memorial, and it is. You're right. You have the fountains outside, and it's outside, and like you get inside, and it was really rough. I mean, the thing being part of the Cole and getting to be there, because there's that kind of that war on terrorism, that whole terrorist attack, and like the Cole in Yemen, and then this happened the next year, and there's a connection there, right? So when we pulled in, I'd never seen anything. I had not been in the Navy very long. I'd never seen anything like it. I mean, there were fire boats out, and they were like just spraying like water cannons, like, and they dyed the tanks like red, white, and blue. Well, red and blue, and just, there were people that had climbed over stuff, were on like rocks, like just screaming, and it was just a very prideful moment for me. Like, wow, they're doing that for me, for us, and we actually we parked in Staten Island. That's the pier we were at, and there was another destroyer the exact same class as ours on the opposite side that was there as well, and we were given tours the whole time. But because of the Cole, we gave like thousands and thousands and thousands more tours, because people wanted to. They drove from the city out because they wanted to be on the Cole. People waited in line for hours, to come on the ship and see it, and it was really when people ask me like, what was your favorite port you ever went to, and I'd say something overseas, and once we got to talking about this, I think it was New York, man. Like, honestly, just because it was that first thing I did that I was like, wow.
Just put things in perspective.
Like, the patriotism that I already had, sure, but like just that swelling of pride in the people around me, and seeing all that, and I know New York always has this thing about it that everybody there is jerks. Well, not if you're in your dress whites. Super nice. Let get you anywhere.
Yeah.
It was great, and getting to do that and being part of that, and getting to see that was amazing. To see New York still come out like that to us, because of that connection. So it is another reason that I personally will never forget 9/11. I mean, I remember where I am. But doing that and seeing that, it's insane. I watch videos now, and it gets me a little choked up.
It gets emotional.
Yeah.
So, we appreciate you guys coming in today and watching us here on Facebook. If you're watching on YouTube now, go ahead and click this video. Well, actually, the video is not going to pop up. It'll pop up in a minute.
Yeah.
But
for our bonus content.
For the bonus.
If you're here, though, we're rolling right into it. But again, take the time. Remember, watch a video, something. it's important. It was a big turning point for our nation, and it might just relight something for you.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks a lot. Thank you for listening to today's episode. You were just behind the helm. To see this podcast live, check us out on Facebook every Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you were listening to this podcast on Apple or Spotify, head on over to our YouTube page to see this show and extra content. If you're on YouTube already, click the video below to see the after show and bonus content that's available right now. No matter what platform you're on, find the link in the description to find the links to all our other platforms. And as always, find it, like it, share it, and follow it. Thanks, guys.